Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 92nd episode of Don't Forget the Popcorn. Well, it's time. I'm very happy to present a video I've been wanting to do for a long time, but it only made sense to release it during Pride Month. I personally love LGBT movies, and a few of them I would consider not only some of my favorites, but some of the best films of all time. I just wanted to say before we wrap up the Pride Month videos for the month that I have been having a blast watching these films I haven't seen and learning more about the LGBT community. I have a lot of respect for that community and glad things seem to be shifting upwards in there more or less. I can't speak from any experience, I'm just speculating. So I apologize if my thoughts were ignorant. LGBT films are just as important as any other group of people's films. A case could be made they could be more important because every race and gender has members of the community. So an LGBT story could double as a story about a specific group besides that one. Seems to happen that way by design. Today, we are going to be picking the best LGBT movies of all time. I'm going to pick 25 with all sorts of variety from comedies to horror dramas, films about trans men and women, everything. There will be 5 honorable mentions because I yet again could barely pick these. So guys, remember, love is love, and I worked hard on this video, so feel free to engage. Comment your favorites or what I got wrong, like and subscribe, and let's get into the best LGBT films of all time. Number 25. But I'm a Cheerleader, 1999, directed by Jamie Babbitt. Now, I'm not going to bog this list down with a bunch of sad and depressing films. We're going to have some fun with this list. So I'm a Cheerleader came out in the golden year, and it's a pretty funny, quirky movie. We got a young Natasha Lyonne, same year as American Pie came out. This comedy is about a young girl in high school whose parents send her to gay camp to pray away the gay. Although she claims she isn't gay, has a boyfriend, and is a cheerleader. Basically, the perfect suburban life. While there, she gets deeper in her sexuality, and it's just an interesting ride. It's got some beautiful set designs, some great comedic performances. We also have a young Michelle Williams and a RuPaul performance with no drag. This is a fun one to watch and just have a good time with. There's a great detail in this minimalistic film. It's cleverly written, and it's a fun coming-of-age story from the 90s highlighting something that was still taboo then. I would recommend this if you haven't seen it. Number 24. Love, Simon, 2018, directed by Greg Berlanti. We have back-to-back coming-of-age high school LGBT stories, but this one is about a guy. This is a funny one. I mean, it was clearly inspired by Perk stylistically, but this film has a uniqueness of its own. Simon is gay, but no one knows. He doesn't appear or come off gay. Just a regular cool guy. A guy anyone can get along with, which is where the beauty lies. Some things go on in Simon's life, and he has to go to extremes to hide his sexuality. This is a heartfelt one. I honestly shed a small tear when I first saw this. Nick Robinson perfectly plays Simon, and by the end of the film, he feels like your friend. This movie is funny, lighthearted, and thoughtfully written. If you are struggling to come out as a young teen, this is a good one to watch for sure. Number 23. Blue is the Warmest Color, 2023, directed by Abdelatif Kechiche. I know I butchered that one. Well, we have our first hard drama on the list, and it's a very graphic one. This NC-17 French language film stars the lovely Léa Seydoux and Adèle Exarchopoulos, who both give all-star performances. It's about a young girl who ends up exploring her sexuality and having a relationship with an older woman. The film follows their relationship over time and shows the ups and downs of the same-sex love and the confusion of sexuality. This is a long film, and I won't lie, some of it is overdone, but it's the message, the acting, and direction cannot be denied. This is a 3-hour French film, and I can't say it's for everyone, but I think if you're into art house romance films, this is up your alley. Number 22. All of Us Strangers, 2023, directed by Andrew Hay. This film here would probably be higher on the list if it wasn't so new. I still must let this heartbreaking film marinate a little. This movie is about a gay man who ends up falling in love with his neighbor. All this happens while he is still in mourning the death of his parents. This movie is very different in its approach. It's kind of a fantasy movie at the end of the day, and if you watch it, you'll know what I'm talking about. I was very moved by this film, not only by the heartbreaking subject matter, but in the filmmaking techniques. The cinematography and use of colors give life to this movie like none other. It's an art house film through and through, but this is a must watch. Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal give Oscar worthy performances in this film and really bring this thing to life. Andrew Hay directed his ass off here. Number 21. Boys Don't Cry, 1999, directed by Kimberly Pierce. So we got our first trans movie on the list, and it will not be our last. Boys Don't Cry is one I don't see being brought up often when I hear about the best LGBT films. But this movie is a banger. Based on the real story of Brandon Tina, Hilary Swank plays a trans man who ends up befriending a group of people and falling in love with one of the ladies in the group, played by the great Chloe Sevigny. I mean, Hilary's transformation alone is worth watching this movie. She is an absolute gem. I know a lot of people in the community are upset they didn't have a real trans man playing the role, and I understand that. But I don't think anyone can deny Hilary's Oscar-winning performance isn't amazing. This film will break you down for real. There are a few very tough scenes to watch in this, but this is a great film that will have you grip start to finish. Another one out the golden year. Number 20. Pink Flamingos, 1972, directed by John Waters. So this is going to be one of the more controversial and weird picks on the list, but hear me out. Divine is an LGBT icon. John Waters is an LGBT icon. This is their cult classic, his magnum opus. And damn it, I do like this film. Now, let me be 100% clear. I would not recommend this movie. This movie is about a trans woman and a couple from Baltimore who are in a contest to see who's the most disgusting person in the world. Now, you can let your imagination run wild on what could be in this film. I mean, there's some scenes with chickens I can't get behind, some crazy stuff going on with the Baltimore couple, and yet, I still think this movie is funny and iconic. It's gross, it's kind of dumb, but damn it, it is funny and is one of those movies you kind of think about for a long time after you watch it. I mean, there's a grown, large woman who lives in a kid's playpen and eats eggs all day. I can't say watch this movie, but if you know, you know. Number 19. A Single Man, 2009, directed by Tom Ford. Well, who would have known that this high-profile fashion designer was a great filmmaker too? This is a subdued film, one that just kind of hangs out with you, and by the end, you feel every emotion our lead Colin Firth is feeling. A Single Man is about a gay man and what he does on the day he finds out his partner died in a car accident. We see this man go through and try and deal with his regular life, and he can't seem to focus on anything else. He runs into different people and ends up in different places. It shows the struggles of a gay man in the 1950s. It shows the real pain of losing someone you know was perfect for you, someone that can never be replaced. Listen, don't worry, there are going to be some more fun ones on the list. This one hits really hard as well. A must watch for great dramas and great acting. Shout outs to Tom Ford. Is there anything this guy isn't good at? Number 18. The Birdcage, 1996, directed by Mike Nichols. The Birdcage is another fun one on the list. It stars the GOAT and legend Robin Williams, Nathan Lane, Gene Hackman, Hank Azaria, and Diane Wiest. This film is about two gay men who run a drag club called the Birdcage, and they have to pretend to be other people in order to please their son and his fiance's parents. This is easily one of the most rewatchable on the list, and it's a true gem. It's funny and heartfelt, a total blast from the past 90s timepiece. We get some brilliant performances with some great directing and writing. The set designs and costumes are also great. This is one to have fun with and laugh with the family. Rest in peace to Robin Williams, man. Number 17. Bound, 1996, directed by the Wachowskis. 96 was a pretty good year. This here is one of my personal favorite LGBT movies. It was actually a little blueprint to The Matrix, if you ask me. The Wachowskis here crafted a tight, campy thriller that keeps you on edge for the whole time. It's about two ladies who meet under weird circumstances and end up trying to steal money from the mob. Now that isn't selling this movie at all. It's slick and sexy and stars two of the sexiest ladies of the 90s, Gina Gershon and Jennifer Tilly. These two ladies have amazing chemistry, and man, this will make you hot whether you are in the LGBT community or not. Joey Pants also gives a great pre-Matrix performance. This one is quite subtle, but fun and tense in all the best ways. Number 16. Tangerine, 2015, directed by Sean Baker. My man, Sean Baker. I really do love this director, and I can't wait to see Honora. But before he was winning Palme d'Ors, he was making movies on iPhones about trans sex workers and how they live. Tangerine is about a young trans sex worker looking for her boyfriend on Christmas Eve. Now, I'm just going to leave it at that because if you haven't seen this movie, this is a must watch. This movie is hilarious and gives us a slice of life into a world most of us know nothing about. This movie is well acted by a lot of first time actors and Sean Baker regulars. It's well written and directed by the man himself. Sean shows us these people with honesty and care. You must watch this film if you haven't seen it. Number 15. Cruisin', 1980, directed by William Friedkin. William Friedkin made a few LGBT classics. The Boys in the Band is another LGBT banger, but this movie, with a slick and convincing performance from Al Pacino, really showed us the talent on both sides. This film is about a cop who goes undercover into the leather world of gay cruising in order to find a serial killer. This movie is insane and super stylistic. It's got this Michael Mann vibe to it with the cinematography and use of color. It's got lots of twists and turns and really gets under your skin. In my personal opinion, it has one of the best endings to any thriller mysteries of all time. Al Pacino is showing us why he's a legend in this. I know this film didn't do well upon release, but give this a watch and tell me it isn't good. Number 14. Call Me By Your Name, 2017, directed by Luca Guadagnino. You know, this movie is quite divisive among cinephiles. Some say it's a masterpiece, some say it's ass. I don't think it's either of those, but I do think it's a very beautiful film inside and out. It has a heartbeat that a lot of movies don't. And I must give credit to Chalamet and Hammer. They were 1,000% committed to these roles, and Timmy's Oscar nom was well deserved. This film is about a young boy in Italy who falls in love with one of his dad's student proteges. This film is pretty and such a vibe. Yes, it is quite graphic at times, and I was a bit taken aback because I didn't read the book, but I'll tell you, it is a wild ride. Nonetheless, this is a fun and yet devastating film that I think everyone should see at least once. Definitely one of the best movies set in the 80s for sure. Number 13. The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, 1994, directed by Stephen Elliott. This movie is just so funny. This is one of the most fun movies you'll ever see. This film follows three friends, two drag queens and a trans woman, as they go on tour on a bus they named Priscilla to do a number of performances at shady locations. This film, of course, is a road trip comedy that explores all three of them in their deepest states. Tu Wong Fu was absolutely watching this film. The performances are absolutely stunning. I think it may be Guy Pearce's best performance, and Hugo Weaving and Terrence Stamp are sensational. This movie is bright and colorful and just a great time. It touches on a lot of things that are very relevant to today. It is a hilarious one. Well, there's more comedies on the list than I thought there would be. Number 12. Carol, 2015, directed by Todd Haynes. One of the best LGBT directors making one of the best LGBT movies. Todd Haynes knows how to suck into his characters' worlds without really telling you anything about them. He knows how to make the characters feel like you know them when you know nothing about them. This movie is about a woman who is going through a divorce and her child has become a pawn in the middle of it. She ends up meeting a young girl who works in a department store and they end up having some fun together. This movie stars my favorite working actress right now, Kate Blanchett. She's absolutely sensational, as she always is, and we also get an all-star performance from a great in the making, Rooney Mara. We also get a great supporting performance from LGBT goddess Sarah Paulson. I fell in love with this movie the first time I saw it. I hope you will too if you haven't seen it. Number 11. Portrait of a Lady on Fire, 2018, directed by Celine Sciamma. I know people expected this to at least make the top 10. And although I love this movie, I don't think it's as good as what is to come in the top 10. This movie is about a French painter in the 1700s who is commissioned to paint a lady who will not sit still for anyone. While on this mission, they form a relationship and it shows us the realities of those times. Now, this movie is one of the most gorgeous looking films I have ever seen. It really looks like a painting. I really do understand all the praise the movie got, and I do love it myself. The two ladies leading this thing give all-star performances, and it's a brilliant LGBT and feminist piece for this century. Cracking the top 10, number 10, Happy Together, 1997, directed by Wong Kar-wai. The top 10, man, was so hard to put these in order. Okay, now, when people think of Wong Kar-wai, they think of In the Mood for Love or even Chungking Express. But he made this little beautiful LGBT film I rarely hear talked about. This film is about a guy who is in love with a man who always leaves him at the most inopportune times. This film shows us love. And it really doesn't matter what the genders are because we've seen this story before, where someone loves someone so much they just put up with anything from them. Tony Lang gives us one of his career bests in his decorated filmography. Wong gives us some of his best direction and storytelling in this gripping story of love. In my opinion, this is a far better love story than In the Mood for Love, but I know that's very controversial. Number 9. Beau Travail, 1999, directed by Claire Denis. Another one of my personal favorites on this list, and one I honestly think is a masterpiece. This French film about a troop of soldiers in Djibouti is one of the most subtle and subdued LGBT films on this list. It's not in your face at all. We get this point of view from a repressed man who lets jealousy get the best of him. This film is a homoerotic thriller that shows us how bad desire and jealousy can be if not contained and controlled. The choreography in this movie is some of the most unique and interesting I've ever seen. The performances are subtle in the best way, but also strong and heartfelt all at once. Something about Claire's direction here is some of her best. I mean, it did come out in that golden year. Number 8. The Favorite, 2018, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. Yorgos is the hottest director in the game right now, in my opinion, and honestly, all of his movies are just fucking great. This one here is one of my favorites. This film is about an interesting love triangle between three ladies that get out of hand as politics and deceit come into play. Yorgos gives us some weird and fun things, as he always does, but he also shows us he understands every type of lady in this film, giving us three powerful archetypes of women here, showing us layers on layers of the female psyche and how they operate in some of the most sensitive situations. Now, if you don't think I'm right, give this another watch and try and see it from that angle. I mean, we don't even know if the two of the characters are actually gay in it, or are they just doing acts for their own gain? This film is brilliantly directed by the guy Yorgos himself, and Olivia Colman, Emma Stone, and the beautiful Rachel Weisz give us some of the best performances of 2018. This is easily one of the best period pieces ever made. Number 7. The Fox and His Friends, 1975, directed by Rainer Werner Fassbinder. Well, this may be biased because this is one of my favorite directors of all time, and you might hear his name again before this video ends. This German LGBT director died far too young, but left us with a pile of gold to sort through. Well, this movie is special because it stars the man Rainer himself, as he gives us a great performance in a film about a guy who wins the lottery and gets taken on a ride by a handsome swindler. This movie breaks your heart because it doesn't matter that it's a story about two men. We've seen people do what is done in this movie regardless of orientation or gender. It's a great film, but so sad because unfortunately it can be very accurate to a lot of people we see in real life right now. The Fox is a special character, and he'll always have a special place in my heart. If you haven't seen this, please give it a watch. A hard-hitting drama. Number 6. Lawrence Anyways, 2012, directed by Xavier Dolan. Last week I put an entire review out for this movie, which I'll link below if you're interested. This is one many people haven't seen, a French language Canadian film about a man who truly deep down wants to be a woman. He is in love with a woman and wants her to stay with him as he undergoes the changes. Well, man, let me just say this movie smacks on all levels. A 3-hour film that flies by, and somehow I still wanted more. This movie shows us that everyone really does have a voice in a story and teaches us about unconditional love. This film is perfectly acted and directed. Xavier Dolan is one of the best and most underrated voices of his generation. Number 5. The Handmaiden, 2016, directed by Park Chan-wook. I'm so glad we are kicking off the top 5 with a Park Chan-wook movie. Now, I know there's been a lot of foreign language picks for a while, but you guys gotta watch these movies. Park Chan-wook is one of the most interesting and talented directors working today. I never know what I'm gonna see in his films. And truthfully, no matter how gruesome or wild the movie is, all his films are about love. And this one is about two girls who meet under interesting circumstances, but they both have a secret. This movie is fucking crazy. It's sexy, slick, fun, funny, and filled with twists you will not see coming. This movie is so stylish and cool. Park really is at the top of his game with this one. I know people say Old Boy is his magnum opus, but it would have to be this one for me. Number 4. The Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant, 1972, directed by Rainer Werner Fassbinder. Well, this here is a special movie on the list for a lot of reasons. One, it's one of my personal favorite movies of all time. It was one of the first foreign language films I watched that got me into more art house cinema, and it's an absolute masterpiece. Without a doubt, the bitchiest film on this list. This film follows a fashion designer who falls in love with a young woman she meets through her cousin. Rainer has showed us a lot through his films that have reflected his real life. He's a hard lover, and that's been documented, and Petra is no different. The dynamic between all of the women in this film have a strange and eerie vibe to it, and it can't really be explained until the end. This film explores sexuality and love in a very intense way. This is a claustrophobic film, all pretty much taking place in Petra's room. It's meticulously shot, and we get an all-star performance from Margit Carstensen as Petra. And I know this isn't going to be for everyone, but if you can see the magic in this movie, I would love to shake your hand. Number 3. All About My Mother, 1999, directed by Pedro Almodovar. One from the great year, this may be the most indirect LGBT film on this list. It's about a woman in Spain who loses her son and makes a trip to tell his father. Sounds like a pretty straightforward film, right? Well, if you've seen a Pedro film, you know there is far more than meets the eye. I don't want to spoil this one at all for anyone who's never seen it. But just know, it's an LGBT film, and it's a film you absolutely need to see. This film is beautiful and full of twists and turns. It's tragic in a poetic way only Pedro can bring us. In a movie filled with such tragedy, we smile and laugh through pretty much all of it. I was blown out my shoes when I first saw this movie, and I couldn't recommend it enough. This is also one of my personal favorite LGBT films. Number 2. Brokeback Mountain, 2005, directed by Ang Lee. The movie that should have beat Crash for Best Picture. Brokeback is one of those movies that just really can't be denied by any film fan. It's so powerfully acted and directed, it pulls you in, and you forget you're watching two of the most masculine male figures in Hollywood be so vulnerable and sensitive to each other. Jake and Heath feel like two real people. Two real men who are trying to deal with their sexualities in the best way they can given the time and their circumstances. I don't think I need to tell you about this movie. It's a classic at this point, and really, can you picture a best LGBT films of all time list without this movie in the top 5? The cinematography in this movie is some of the best of the 2000s, and Ang Lee without a doubt deserved Best Director. Heath Ledger, you are very missed, my man. What you gave us before you left us is some of the best stuff anyone could ever ask for. Thank you, man. Before we get into number 1, we got 5 honorable mentions. No order. Monster. Mysterious Skin. Bottoms. God's Own Country. And Beautiful Thing. Now, number 1, you probably guessed it if you know good LGBT movies. Number 1, Moonlight, 2016, directed by Barry Jenkins. Well, I know this could be cliche at this point, but I really don't care. The only film on the top 10 made by an American director, Barry Jenkins gave us one of the most poetic LGBT stories we've gotten over the years. This movie is based on the play In Moonlight, Black Boys Look Blue, and follows the story of Chiron, a young gay boy who is trying to figure out who he is growing up in a rough environment with a drug-addicted mother. This movie follows his life in 3 distinct acts and stages. What makes this movie magical is its subtlety. Important things happen off-screen. A lot is unsaid and unspoken. We just see it written all over these characters that gave some of the best performances of the decade. Barry Jenkins gave us some of the best directions of the 2010s, and this movie has a beautiful look to it, paying homage to the play and its themes. I think this is one everyone has pretty much seen, but if you haven't, this should be the first one you watch on this list. I'm so glad Mahershala Ali got the Oscar for this. Guys, thank you so much for watching my best LGBT films of all time. I hope that I've been respectful in celebrating the community this month, and I had a blast doing it. Let me know what was right with my list, what was wrong. Let me know if there is a film or topic you'd like me to review. Like and subscribe. Follow me on Letterboxd, Ralph Vader. I'll link that below. I got a podcast with my buddy, The Cutting Room Floor. I'll link that below for more movie content. I'll be back next week. And don't forget the popcorn.